Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Jeff. And today we have a mailbag episode for you. We got a bunch of questions from you guys on Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, kind of all over the place. Got a very good variety of questions. We have some dynasty questions, I know some rookie questions, keeper questions, strategy questions. Basically covers everything here. So we'll go through all of those questions for you on the show. In the meantime, make sure you check us out on Twitter. We're at the FF Prophet. Instagram is Fantasy Football Prophet. Check out the website, fantasyfootballprophet.com. Send us an email, fantasyfootballprophet@gmail.com. Basically, any of those spots. Next time we do a mailbag show, we'll get your questions there. So, Jeff, how about we just get right into it? Bunch of questions here. I've read most of them. You kind of are almost in the dark here a little bit, so we get a little on the top, just off the top of the head here. See what you think. Chris P. asked, will Brandon Marshall hurt Odell Beckham Jr.? Do you think it's a wide receiver 1A, 1B situation in New York now? What are you thinking? Do you think Marshall hurts Beckham's value?
To start with, I don't think it's a 1A, 1B type situation at all. I think it's a clear-cut situation. I think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be number one. I have no worries about him whatsoever. Sterling Shepard was a very good wide receiver, too, last year. He's very quiet. He had 8 touchdowns, about 800 yards. So, obviously, there's room to grow there. I think Odell is, one of the best talents out there. I think, if anything, the only thing that can hurt him would be that they could put double coverage on him all the time and really kind of make sure that their defense is tailored just to stop him. And I think it actually helps with Marshall on the other side because they can't do that necessarily. So I don't. I think it actually helps. I think you'll see probably similar numbers because he puts up very, very large numbers. It's hard to kind of, increase those. But yeah, I absolutely. I think 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. I don't see any reason he wouldn't reach that. Yeah, what about you?
I don't think Marshall's going to hurt him at all. If anything, I think it helps him. I've seen this a lot, though. People think that Marshall's going to come in there and take away from him, but you're not going to take. If you have Beckham now not having to be the focus of the defense, how is he not going to be better? He's going to get open. Eli's going to find him. And Marshall, everyone's just expecting him to bounce back, and they think it's just the Jets were why he was so bad. But he's 33 years old. You don't have a lot of receivers when they're 33 that just, all of a sudden pick up an extra 20, 30 catches from the year before. I think he's going to improve, Marshall will, but he's not the same as Beckham right now. He won't be that. It's still Beckham's team. Beckham's we have him both in our top 4. He's the top 4 receiver. And I would draft him that way and not hesitate whatsoever. Not at all. Marshall, I like Marshall. He's fine I still wouldn't want him as my wide receiver too, though. No,
depending on where he goes, I think he's going to be a little more up and down this year. And his touchdown production is kind of all over throughout his career, and his yardage is usually extremely solid. He's always a 1,000-yard receiver, usually more than that, usually 12 to 1,300 yards. But 2014 and then last year, both, he missed a game or two, but both were very disappointing. I think it's just showing he's kind of slowly stepping away from that. Yep. So I think wide receiver 2 on that type of offense is exactly where he should be. I think it helps both of them. I think they're both relevant. I think as a wide receiver 1, he would have really struggled.
And Marshall has been, every time he comes to a new team, he has that first season where he really
does really well.
So let's see. At 33 years old, can he still do it?
Yeah. Maybe. Sterling Shepard caught 8 touchdowns. I don't see any reason he couldn't, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be taken away from Odell Beckham.
All right, next question we got here. This is from I don't like usernames on Reddit. It's kind of another thing about more players in a situation, and will it hurt the guy? It says, will the target hog Mike Evans still be a wide receiver 1 with all of Tampa's new weapons? And Jeff, we know your answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our wide receiver ranks had Mike Evans number 1. So will Deshaun Jackson, O.J. Howard, they're not going to cut into his work.
No, not at all.
Too much.
I think Deshaun Jackson could help him out for the same reason that we just talked about. I think he kind of takes the top off the defense a little bit. He's a good veteran wide receiver, but he's not going to be up there for the bulk of the receiving yards. O.J. Howard is a rookie. We still haven't seen what he can do. I think he's a great talent, future really good tight end, but usually they don't come on that strong. And to be honest, their running game to begin with could be a little shaky.
Yep.
So I think there's going to be more than enough to go around. I think Mike Evans is going to really, really do well this year once again.
Yeah, I do. And again, we're similar on these, but Deshaun Jackson will help him. Deshaun Jackson has never been a guy that's going to take targets, too many targets. He gets 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. Evans is going to get all the targets. O.J. Howard's probably going to be decent, but he's still a rookie, and he's a rookie tight end. Rookie tight ends, we've talked about this too. They don't usually have just breakout seasons right away. It takes a bit. So I don't see it. If anything, it's just going to help Evans. Winston should be better another year in the league. You obviously rank him number 1. You think he's going to be there.
I have no doubt whatsoever.
No, and I'm not worried about getting more players on these teams when there's an elite talent player. Like when Evans, Beckham. When you have that kind of talent, doesn't matter if you throw another guy on the team. No. They're still the best for a reason. It's
consistency, too. You target those guys a ton because you know what they can do with the ball. And you see it all the time. Same thing with Julio. Look how many people he has on that team, and he still does it. And Jordy, Nelson, and, even Antonio Brown. These high-octane offenses actually help these guys.
Yeah, why not? The more chances that this is going to be better. All right, here we go. Got a couple keeper questions for you. MFIC77 asks, you can keep 2 keepers. They all cost the same. Okay. You got Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Lynch, T.Y. Hilton, and Carlos Hyde. This is an interesting one. Right off the bat, I kind of throw Hyde to the side here in this one. Just because, we've heard some of this news out of the OTAs. I don't take that stuff too seriously, but it's never good when you're having bad news. I don't take the good news seriously at all. Bad news, when you hear these rumblings, there's usually a reason. This isn't the first time we heard stuff about Hyde, so let's throw him to the side.
Especially with keepers, you want to make sure that you're going to get your return on value.
Yep. So it basically comes down to Rodgers, Hilton, and Lynch. What are you thinking here?
I was going to say, I know what I would do. It kills me because I think Rodgers is incredibly we all know how much everyone loves Rodgers. But in this situation, and I guess I take it as well, if he's keeping 2 people, I assume everyone has the same option. I feel like you have to keep Lynch because I feel like if other people are keeping running backs, that is going to dwindle very, very quickly. So I think you need Lynch, and I think you have to take Hilton. I think both of those guys are top 10 running back, top 10 wide receiver, and then you can make up for quarterback later. Yeah. I think that would be the smartest way to go. But I could understand if they threw that to the side and try to keep Rodgers. But I think the smart play would be Lynch and Hilton.
What about you? I'm keeping Hilton for sure here. And then I go between Rodgers and Lynch. And I would want to say I would actually want to lean towards Rodgers here. But I'm taking this question, thinking about it. He says all of them cost the same. So that makes me think if everybody costs the same, there's no first round tag on him or whatever, all the running backs are going to be kept. So if you throw Lynch back out there, he all of a sudden probably becomes
first round guy.
Easily, he's without a doubt a top 5 running back out there, I would say for sure. Because there's no way these other guys ahead of him aren't kept. So if this was different, where it wasn't going to have all the top guys kept, I would probably say Rodgers. Because I'm not sold yet on Lynch. I don't trust it completely. But because of this situation, I think you have to go Lynch. Just because, all the running backs are going to be kept. But for some reason, if you don't think they're going to be, if you know your league a little better, and you think, all right, there's going to be a lot of running backs on the board, I would think I would lean Rodgers in that situation, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. So you have to just kind of look at the teams, what's going to be out there, think about it that way, and I think you have to go Lynch. As much as I want to say Rodgers. Yeah, I really do. It's just there's going to be no running backs in this league available, it looks like.
Yeah, and running backs are tough to come by anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and Lynch is what? Brown, at least he's a top 20 for sure in every league. So basically everybody ahead of him is going to be kept. I just think that's the way you have to do it. As much I really want to keep Rodgers there.
I know I love Rodgers too, but I think you could really put yourself in a hole if you don't have a running back coming out of that.
All right, Broda14, another keeper question. This is a PPR league. You get to keep 2 players. It's just standard lineups: 1 quarterback, 2 receiver, 2 running back, tight end, and a flex. You get to pick 2, and they actually do have a round value on them. So Terrell Pryor, 15th round, Tyreek Hill, 15th round, Pierre Garçon, 14th round, LaShawn McCoy, round 2, which would be, looks like 14th pick overall in the draft, Paul Perkins, 15th round, Martavis Bryant, 15th round. For me, right away, Terrell Pryor, round 15, that's a lock. I'm going to keep Pryor, without a doubt. That's just what I'm going to do. Now, what do you do here? He also wrote down here that it looks like David Johnson, J.J., Jordan Howard, Melvin Gordon will most likely all be kept. So that could mean Zeke could be out there yet. Le'Veon Bell could be out there yet. McCoy could be out there yet. So there's still some running... Or McCoy, he has to play him. But, there's still some running backs, at least 2 ahead of McCoy in our ranks, looks like. So McCoy would probably be the 3rd running back if he was left out there. What are you thinking? Do you have to keep McCoy? You have to keep that running back? For 14th pick. He would go before the 14th pick, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I have to agree with you on Terrell Pryor. I think he is a lock in that situation right now.
Yep.
And I love all the values for those guys down there. I'm a huge Martavis Bryant fan. Yep. I really wanted to say him, but I think you have to go McCoy. He is a top 5 running back, and you're spending only a 2nd round pick on him. Mm-hmm. You would have to get him in the 1st round usually. I don't see any way around that one. So you're actually getting value on him on top of that, and you're making sure that you have one solid running back. Yeah, I would absolutely. Terrell Pryor and McCoy. Would you lean that same way?
I'm thinking so because I've always I'm going to go to a draft like that. I need to have a top 5 running back. You come out the draft the top 5 running back. I think you need to do that. And if you don't think you can get one unless you keep McCoy, you have to keep McCoy. I feel like if you're in a situation where you know for sure, I don't know what his 1st round draft pick would be, but if you can come out of the draft knowing, okay, I'm going to have Le'Veon Bell or I'm going to have Ezekiel Elliott. Okay, maybe then I might think a little bit more of, dropping. See, I'm not sold enough on Bryant myself, even though it is 50th round. It's great, but McCoy, I just like having a sure thing of talent on my team. In round 2, if you drafted McCoy in the 14th pick overall, you'd be extremely happy with that.
Yeah.
So I think it is McCoy. It's McCoy and Pryor. It has to be. I mean, it's not Garcon. No, and Tyreek Hill is fine, but I just think. You look at those round values sometimes, but I think you really want to get. Yeah,
I think you have to, and especially when you look at the way that the roster is set up. When you only have 2 and 2, you can definitely find wide receiver value somewhere else. Running back is going to be very difficult to come by, and if you're only playing that many players, once again, and
especially if you're not in a spot in the 1st round to get one of those top guys, you have to have McCoy.
Yeah,
you have to come out of that. You don't want to have.
And
Todd Gurley as your number 1.
Yeah, it's great too that you are getting value on him. Because if you had to take him in the 1st round, I still might say, hey, you have to take him. But this time you're actually going to get a pick, and then your McCoy pick is taken, and then you have all these other guys you can get, and you already locked down Terrell Pryor, which should go way above that.
Yep.
So I think I think that's the best situation you could be in.
All right, Chris P has another question. Thoughts on the Crowell hype right now?
Oh, that's a good question.
I've been a Crowell fan. We both had him ranked decently high.
Yeah, I thought our first mock drafts, I think, were 13th and 14th, respectively.
Consensus now, Crowell is 14th.
Okay.
So, he is inching up there a little bit, but
I think he might get even a little bit higher by the time.
It worries me. I don't like that. I liked Crowell as good value, more towards like the 20th. I want him to be ranked consensus-wise around 20th. And then I can snag him there. Because that's what it worries me a bit. It really does. But then again, I'm looking at this consensus ranks and look at the ranks. After Crowell, if he's around 13th, 14th, there isn't anybody behind that I am even close to as high on as Crowell. So I like Crowell a lot as your 2nd running back. And, man, I just hope he doesn't inch up further. Like on these ranks, he's below Hyde, he's below Miller yet, which I could see him. He could somehow get ahead of those guys if the hype keeps building here. And I didn't see this coming, honestly. I thought Crowell was going to be an under-the-radar guy and kind of sit back and I'd be able to snag him again like last year, but it's not happening.
I did too. I thought because of, he was on Cleveland, I just thought people would pay him no mind. And, being in a top 20 running back is nothing to sneer at, but I think the hype is kind of real. I could get behind the reasons why people want to put him up higher and higher.
Yep.
If someone put him up at a 9-10, I wouldn't even be shocked by that. That doesn't surprise me that much. He has been putting up good numbers. Duke Johnson hasn't really taken away stuff.
And even Duke Johnson, he's a different player. He's going to be
exactly.
He's going to get his, but it's going to be different. Crowell's still going to get the main work.
And I'm definitely not sold on the pass game, so you're going to have to run a lot. I mean, pretty much everything in that system is pointing towards he's going to get every opportunity.
Yep.
So I absolutely can get behind the hype.
Yep.
And that's the only bad thing. Me and Craig,
I don't like the hype because I wanted him.
Me and Craig both. We're huge value guys. We're looking for where we can pick, the diamonds out of the rough in order to improve our roster. And when you have to take him as a RB1, it handcuffs you a bit. So
because you want to get good value at that second running back spot, and I think he's that. But which leads into my next question here. Fantasy Zombie 17 asks us, who are good mid-round running backs to target besides Frank Gore and Isaiah Crowell, which we've talked about both of these guys as just good value.
You're cutting my legs out from under
Frank
me.
Gore is a good value late because people not forget about Gore, but just don't think he's going to be great, which he's not. He's going to be solid, but I like those two guys, so obviously can't pick them. Who is a player you like to get in the mid-round? So, more of a running back 2, maybe even a running back 3, but what do you think? This is a tough list because honestly, a lot of these guys, they don't just jump out at me right now. There's question marks behind a lot of them. And
so many of them.
Who would be your guy? Who would you pick?
I have a couple. And obviously this is up for change, depending on who you see, because a lot of these guys could be absolutely turn into a 50-50 type running back. They could lose their jobs to rookies coming in. But I think the guys, and I'm not predicting injury. It's really tough to do that, so I'm not going to do that. But I think Tevin Coleman is a safe bet.
Yep.
Even as a backup to Freeman, he gets a lot of touches. He is incredibly good. I like Tevin Coleman a lot. You can get him in the mid-rounds. And Amir Abdullah, I think because he's coming off injury, I think he's clearly the best runner on that Detroit team. I think as long as he stays healthy, he will put up decent production. Yeah. And I think he might get way more carries than even people are assuming he's going to. I think he could get the kind of bulk that could really shoot him up into the top 20, possibly. And then one more guy that I really do like. He's in a iffier situation than the other two, but I still like Bilal Powell. I think Forte is aging out a bit. I think Bilal Powell is going to be able to get bulk, and I think he's just, to be honest, a more talented runner at the moment. And Jets are kind of in flux. I think they'll have to run the ball. So I think, not that I want him to be a running back 2 by any means or anything like that, but I think he would be nice that you could see if he develops into that running back 3, that flex position. I think he has that talent.
When I'm looking here, I like Eddie Lacy. And everyone likes to joke about Eddie Lacy, and no one's a big Eddie Lacy fan. But where he's right now, he's in that around 20th range. I really do think he's going to get the majority of the carries there with Seattle. It just seems like that's what it's going to be. And if he can even be 75% of what Lynch was when they were doing, I think he could be very, very good. I worry about that offensive line isn't very good.
Yeah.
They haven't been. That's my worry with it. But I mean, he was good in Green Bay. Really, for his first 2 seasons, he was a top 10 running back both years. That 2015, he kind of fell off a little bit, but it wasn't even. It was just injury and obviously probably some weight issues yet. Last year, he was having a good season, like at least yards per carry wise. He wasn't getting touchdowns, but that's Green Bay's offense. They don't need to run the ball in the goal line all the time. I just feel like he's going to have just a resurgence this year. I think he's going to be in good shape. Obviously, he has these weight goals to hit. He wants to make a good impression, obviously, because if he doesn't this year, I think it's done. He's done. This is this is like a 1-year deal. If he doesn't do it this year, he could very well be out of the league if he comes in here and does nothing this year. So I'm sold. I'm not sold on it, but I really like Eddie Lacy. If I can get him, he's around that 20 range. So if you can get him as your 3rd running back, you are going to be in great shape. But I wouldn't mind him as my 2nd running back. I'm fine with it. I think he's going to get enough of the work. And I'm going to say if there's anybody else other than that, honestly, not many people really stand out for me. I like LeGarrette Blount because he's down there in the ranks yet, but you don't know you don't know his situation either. I think he's going to get the majority of the work because he's really going to have to beat out Smallwood. That's it. Sproles is there, but Sproles is a different player. Blount should get a lot of the work, so I like him too. But Eddie Lacy's my guy.
I like that.
I'm kind of targeting him.
Actually, there's one more guy, and he shouldn't be this low, but the only reason he is because he's suspended, but we have to say Doug Martin. Mm-hmm. If you can get him later on and just kind of wait out the first couple weeks, I think you'll be in good shape. So I think those are some good, I really do. And I like your pick as well of Fat Eddie Lacy. I do worry about the other guys a little bit cutting into it, but I think Procise will only be a guy that really a third down back catching it. And I think Rawls is fun too, but I think there's enough work for all of them. So.
I think so. All right, Silly Burrito asks, if David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, and Ezekiel Elliott are gone, who would be the fourth best running back to take in standard scoring? My ranks I have McCoy there, so it's going to be McCoy for me.
I do
too. It's still McCoy. Yeah, there's some concern that age and injury, but at this point, it's still McCoy. The other guys behind him, Gordon, they're just McCoy's still better at this point. Yeah, we might be wrong on that, but I'm going to pick McCoy as the fourth running back and really not even think twice about it. So that's where I'm going there. All right, Walsh JA6 asked, QB seems like a deep position. Worth going after top tier or get skill guys with early picks and stream quarterback? And we kind of we did our mock. We went over this a little bit, and we don't like getting. I don't like getting quarterback early. You don't like getting quarterback early, but Aaron Rodgers was there and we picked him in the third. Honestly, Aaron Rodgers is it for me. In an auction, I'm still not going to. Don't break the bank for him, and don't pick him earlier than the third in a snake draft. But that's it. Honestly, I'm not Breeze, Luck, Ryan, Brady. I'm not going after him. They're going to be too much for me. Rodgers is about it. And in an auction, I'm not going higher than about $20. Honestly, I like to go. There's a lot of good quarterbacks late. We saw that. There's so many guys late, so that's where I'm going to go with that.
And a ton of guys to stream. I think streaming is almost easier than ever. You have a lot of data now you can look at to see who does well where. We talk about Roethlisberger all the time. If he got a home game, put him in. For the love of God, he'll throw 4 touchdowns. So I think there's a ton of ways you can go, and I think it's very, very important to get those guys you truly believe in, that you're going to be able to play week in and week out at the skill positions. Definitely running back, as you've seen with all these questions, is the most important one to lock down early. So absolutely, if you can, like you said, in a snake draft, you're able to pick one like an Aaron Rodgers up in the third. I have no problem with that. I think that's great. In auction, if you want to budget around that, if you truly believe in one of these guys, that's okay too. But don't do it at the expense of a top running back or a top receiver.
Yep. And actually, since we did our quarterback ranking episode a little while back, the consensus has changed a little bit. Jameis Winston's up to 7 and those kind of guys. But what I'm looking at here, if you can wait on a quarterback, Derek Carr, Phillip Rivers, Matthew Stafford are 13, 14, 15 in these ranks.
And I love every single one.
That's a backup quarterback in these ranks. And I like all 3 of those guys. I'd probably go Carr, Rivers, Stafford in that order. And
yeah, I would too.
I think that's how I ranked them. That's great. If you can get those guys, if they're really going to be around 13, 14, 15th quarterback, I mean, even Roethlisberger's the 11th quarterback right now. That's if you're in a 10-team league, it's a backup. So you're going to be able to get these guys late. And so if you don't get Rodgers, don't reach for him. I'm fine with all these guys down here.
And to be honest, too, I mean, in a lot of these situations, those top 5 are going to go, and they'll, in auction they'll go for a decent amount of money, and in snake they'll go early. But there's those, 6 through 10 that are still technically starting quarterbacks. There's a lot of very interesting guys there that you can wait on. I mean, I really like Kirk Cousins. Like you said, I mean, Roethlisberger fell out. I think there's a ton of opportunity in there.
Yep. I definitely agree with that. All right, now we got full dynasty questions and rookie questions here in a row. So first one is from MFic77. He asked, all right, it's a dynasty league rookie draft. He has the number 2 pick. He's assuming Fournette is gone, which should be, I would think. Who do you pick second? And this is actually interesting.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
And I think I know what the consensus would be ranks-wise and what people would lean towards. And it's been Corey Davis. Mm-hmm. He's kind of, I've seen in the ranks number 2. But honestly, I'm not going Corey Davis. I think I'm going McCaffrey. I just like I like to still, even in a dynasty, I like to lean running back. And McCaffrey seems different. I don't know what he's going to be. But after Fournette, I'm not 100% sold on Corey Davis. For sure. Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, don't know what their situation is. I like McCaffrey, so I think I'm going to go him number 2. But what would you do here, Jeff?
This one is, I think, if I was just answering it blindly, I would agree with you. I think I would go McCaffrey as well.
It's a dynasty.
It depends on how it depends on how your team is already set up. Yep. If you need the guy to produce right away, if you can wait on him, I think different guys jump up to me. So if you're weak at wide receiver, you have Corey Davis and you have Mike Williams sitting right there. Both of them great. Corey Davis will probably produce a little more early. Mike Williams has possibly a higher ceiling because of the offense he's already in. And Delvin Cook, if he didn't have such a crappy line, he would be in the consideration as well. But I think the safest one to go for that will give you everything Redway, which you can play him this year. He has an opportunity to become very, very good, and he fills a running back need that is tough to come by nowadays. Is Christian McCaffrey. So I would lean that way as well.
Yeah, because receivers, they have better longevity in dynasty leagues and stuff, but running backs are hard to come by. Receivers aren't as difficult to come by. Even like our dynasty league we're in, I was able to pick up off the waivers prior last year. Crowder, those two guys alone are fine. They're not going to be amazing, but they're good. You can't get those running backs like that off the waivers usually.
But if you are set at running back for some reason, you have two really young ones.
Yep.
I really do love Corey Davis, and I really, really like Mike Williams as well. I would go both of those guys first before you looked at anyone else.
Yep. All right, another dynasty question. This one's from Walsh J.A. What pick in the rookie leftover free agent draft would you give up to give up for Peterson? You get to keep 18 players per team, but what pick? So what round would you trade? What round would you trade your rookie draft pick for Peterson? Not my first rounder. Not doing that. Man, it's interesting to think about because.
Are you trading AP or are you getting him?
I would say if I
what pick would you
to get Peterson?
Oh, what pick would you give up?
Honestly, I like enough players in the second round where I'm not even going to give up a second round right now for Peterson. I would give up my third round pick.
Yeah, that'd be a no brainer for me. Third round
for sure. But I don't. It all depends, I guess, where in that second round I'm picking. That top end of the second round, there are a lot of running backs I like. There could be. Samaje Perine could be there. Kareem Hunt, I don't know if he'll last that long, but he could. There's some of those other running backs. They're all over the place. What about Joe Williams? Jamal Williams. There's two, from Green Bay and San Francisco. There, those guys could be decent. The tight ends could be there. O.J. Howard, Evan Ingram, Njoku.
Yeah, there is a lot of talent.
That's at the top end of it. If you're this is like the back last pick or two in the second round. Yeah, I might think about it. Third for sure. But if you're in probably the top 5 picks of that for second round, I don't think I'm trading that for Peterson. Because he might have 1 year. I don't know what his situation is going to be, and that's too risky.
Yeah.
I don't think he's good enough in a situation to really make a difference for you right now, honestly. I don't know, because
I still do think that he is definitely going to be worth having on your team. Yep. I think you're going to be able to play him a lot. He's not going to be that running back 1. But he could easily be a number 2 or a flex, and you can play him a lot. I guess it would go to me if I needed to win. If I was built to win this year, I would trade. I like the. I don't know what that would technically be, but 16th pick on.
Yeah.
Absolutely, no brainer. Yeah. I think I might even creep into say 13. But I would definitely wouldn't give up 12 or above because I think you can get too much value.
Yeah, what about even a guy like, I don't know, we're just going to land in the second round, but would you rather have Deontay Foreman or Peterson?
For future, I would rather have Deontay. But at the same time, if I'm built to win now.
But do you think Peterson can, he could, I guess there's always a possibility. I just don't think it's enough.
Do you think that AP is not going to produce at all this year?
I think he's going to produce. I just don't know if he's. I like having. There's been a lot of good second round draft picks the last few years in rookie drafts. I've seen David Johnson was a second rounder in a lot of drafts. J.H.I. was a second rounder. So those guys are there.
There's as many as have come. There's been 5 times of them that have.
I also drafted Kevin White in the first.
Exactly.
So, so I get you. It depends on. It really depends on your team makeup and what you need.
It does. I think it would be safe to say that if you don't need AP by any means, or if you don't have to win immediately, probably somewhere in the third round.
Yep. All right. Chris P. has another question for us. He asked, which rookie do you guys think will break out? And, I mean, obviously, I'm going to probably skip over those top guys. Fournette, McCaffrey, I think they're all going to be good. So I'm going to go down the list a little bit.
Okay.
And I talked about it in the draft episode right away. Samaje Perine. I really like the situation he's in. Robert Kelly was fine, but he was also an undrafted free agent. He's nothing amazing about the guy, nothing special about him. He was fine, good player. But I think Perine can take over that job, and I think that could be a good offense for him. So Perine's the guy I really think is going to break out.
I really like that pick. Mine, we just talked about him, but I'm a big fan of Deontay Foreman. Yep. I think he's a great back, a big back, and I think Lamar Miller would be helped out if they took away the large workhorse kind of role that they had him in last year. I don't think he's a perfect fit for that. I think he would do better without it. So I think he is very, very interesting. And I like him too, and I even like better of where people are ranking him right now in these rookie drafts because I can get him in the second round, and I really like that.
All right, some more rookie questions. I don't like usernames asked, will Joe Mixon take over the Bengal backfield? Do you think he's going to take over the role completely from Hill?
Dude, every single person seems like they're saying yes, and I'm not sold on it. I might be the only hater left on this guy, but he has two talented backs that have disappointed in recent years. But there's a lot going on back there, and Hill is not completely useless. Giovanni Bernard is still going to be a third down back. I think he's sandwiched in between people, and I think that he's not going. I think it's going to be just a cluster for this year. So I don't think he's going to take over it by any means. I think he has the best chance of coming out as the lead back by midseason, by the end, just because they've seen what Hill and Giovanni Bernard can do. But I would say no. I would say no, honestly.
I didn't at first think that either, but the more I really think about the situation, I've never been a Jeremy Hill guy. I've gone over this before. I'm just not a big Jeremy Hill guy, and it just feels like, there's a reason they got Mixon where they did. And Mixon, all the question marks before the draft, if you're actually going to just take a stand and draft him that early, I think there's a reason you did it. And, at first I would have said more of a 50-50 workload. I don't think it's going to be that. I think Mixon's going to get quite a bit of the work. If he shows he can play right away, I think it's his job. If he comes in and can't do anything, it's not going to be that way. But I don't see that happening. I think Mixon, I didn't think I was going to be, thinking this way, but I am. I think Mixon is going to be it could be a solid running back too. In the rankings wise, he's up to 17th now in consensus. Jeremy Hill's 44th in consensus. Like everyone, it is really it is really leaning that way. I don't know if that seems like a huge drop, but Hill, after his rookie year, what has he done? He gets some touchdowns, but
I think that's his dangerous thing.
Is he still going to be that guy?
He could still be an insane vulture.
Yeah, see, that's where the thing could be.
So if he, that's what I'm talking about with the sandwich thing. Yep. If he gets a large portion of the touchdowns and Giovanni Bernard gets all the receiving yards, Joe Mixon is going to be tearing up the middle of the field. Yep. So getting a ton of carries, but so he could be kind of stuck in fantasy purgatory for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Mixon's going to get the majority of the work, though.
And this is also assuming that he doesn't get hurt or do something stupid off the field.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing.
We'll see that. I don't like usernames. That's another question. He's like, who is the most likely rookie tight end to succeed?
Ooh.
I'm going to go with Howard. I think the talent's there. And I like Jameis. I like the offense. You could go, O.J. Howard. I really think, I'm not going to think about it too much. O.J. Howard is on a good team. Yeah, Cameron Brate's there, so he might not be the only tight end there, but I think he has a pretty good shot.
I like O.J. Howard, but at the same time, I actually see it a little bit differently. I think the guy that has best chance of being fantasy relevant this year for a rookie is Njoku. And he's on a Cleveland team that needs receiving, and he is a insanely athletic guy, and I think I've said it in other podcasts as well, but I do think that they're going to kind of forgive him for maybe not being able to be up to snuff with the blocking and everything, and I think they're going to use him more as just a freak wide receiver that they can line up in the slot, line up all over the place, and get mismatches. And I think they're going to try to work him into the system quickly because he's going to be one of their best receiving options behind Corey Coleman. So I think I don't know about the consistency. I think O.J. Howard might be better game to game, but I think Njoku will have some big games, and I think I think he has a chance to kind of break out. I wouldn't bank on that by any means. I'm not going to go out and pay anything for him. But if he fell to me, I'd be very interested to stash him and see what happens.
Yeah, I can see either way. And I don't see Ingram being the guy to break out necessarily with
not
the
yet.
Giants.
No, I think there's a... Yeah, I don't see it happening.
It's one of those two.
Not yet.
And I don't even know if any of them will really break out, but
yeah,
Howard, I think, has that best chance.
And as we talked about, rookie tight ends have a very tough time. But I think those two guys, I haven't seen two rookie tight ends in kind of positions where they could be fantasy relevant so quickly.
All right, I'm going to put these two questions together because they're kind of can be similar here. Jackson Stevenson 99 asks, do you think there is a chance Jay Ajayi is a bust? And then Fantasy Zombie 17 asks, who among the top 20 has the most bust potential? So, is that Jay Ajayi? Or do you think? Are you even worried about Jay Ajayi? Are you worried about him at all? And then if you're not, who in that top 20, consensus-wise right now, do you think can be the guy that could bust?
I mean, for only seeing 1 year production, that does worry me a bit.
Yeah.
On a Miami team that seems kind of all over the place. I just feel like he's going to get so many carries. I feel like there's no one backing him up. He had such a wonderful, rookie campaign. I have a hard time believing that he's going to just completely shit the bed and be non-existent or do something so terrible that, he's going to get supplanted by someone else in the backfield. I have a hard time believing that. But at the same time, like I said, 1 year. Yeah, how many times have we seen that? I mean, we even saw it with Gurley a bit. I mean, and I don't think, and you don't have to be non-talented in order to be a bust either, because Gurley is talented, and he was on a crappy team, and his fantasy year didn't turn out. Yep. What do you think? Do you think that there's danger?
There's maybe out of the top 10 running backs, he's the one who could be most likely to. I don't know. To me, I'm not too worried about it, honestly. He had 3 200-yard games.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
He had some. I think the worry comes as the games in between the 200-yard games. He wasn't maybe overly impressive, but you don't just run. I mean, you can get 1 200-yard game. 3 of them, I mean, there's some talent there. And we knew he was talented coming out of the draft, a couple years ago. It just, was he going to really show it on the field? And he finally did. Honestly, and then the bust potential here, if you have to actually have a player that could have the bust potential, I think it's still going to be Gurley for me, just because there's that chance that season last year happens again, and it's maybe even worse because, how much better have the Rams really gotten? I mean, are they going to be – what have they done? They basically replaced, Robert Woods, or you got Robert Woods for Britt kind of a thing, and, I don't know. It's not even like he's going to be necessarily a huge bust. It just could be – I think people are drafting him top 10 thinking, okay, he's going to increase. He might not at all. He might just drop down. There really isn't in the top 20 a guy I'm terribly concerned with. Maybe DeMarco Murray, and that's not even talent or anything else. It just could be injury. And that's and just because all the workload he's had. And Derrick Henry could eat into some of the work. And that might be why he busts, I guess. But honestly, other than that, I'm not really concerned with a lot of these guys. I think I would probably rank it Gurley, Ajayi, Murray. Those would be my 3. Michael Thomas, you'd think, he's only did it 1 year, but he was so good in that offense.
Yeah, and he's number 1 now. I mean, if maybe Cooks was still there, you could say that, hey, he's gonna get the appropriate amount of protection now. But
yeah, maybe for me, it's like Gurley, Ajayi, Murray, and it's not. It's not like a big concern. It's just if I had to pick somebody, that's what it's going to be.
I guess I would too. And you're right. When you're looking at the top 20, all of them are. Most of these guys have done it year after year, so you're kind of either trying to predict the edge, of the cliff, if you will, or you're trying to predict injury, which let's not pretend that we can predict injury. So it's a tough one. I guess the only other one, maybe you predict that LaShawn McCoy finally has a fall off, but I don't know. That's very difficult.
If you went 20 through 30, I'm going to say Carlos Hyde, Lamar Miller.
Exactly. It becomes very much more dicey once you go a little further down. But in the top 20, I would completely follow you. I think it would be Gurley because we've seen what can happen already. Ajayi because we've seen 1 year of it, and then DeMarco Murray because he has someone behind him that can kind of take over the reins if he struggles.
Yep.
I don't see any one of those happening necessarily, but
yeah. I think I'm not worried about any of those top 20 guys. So. All right, we got some more questions from Chris P. He asked, Jacquizz Rodgers and Terrence West. Either of these guys worth a very late draft pick since Doug Martin and Kenneth Dixon are suspended? And I say yes.
I was going to say, I know you have thoughts on these guys. We've talked about them before, so go ahead.
I really think Jacquizz Rodgers, those first 3 weeks, he's gonna be really good, I believe. I think he's going to get the majority of the work. Like, look what happened when they thought they were just going to run him into the ground. They got 30 carries a game for him. Charles Sims is there. I don't see much from him. I don't think there's going to be much there. They're going to run Rodgers into the ground those first 3 games. So you can use him those first 3. But if you're getting him very late, why not? There's no risk for me to get that. Terrence West, I'm not sure that Kenneth Dixon will even take over for Terrence West when he comes back. I mean, everyone seems to think that's going to happen. But again, what has Dixon really shown us? It's hard to predict that. Terrence West was just very solid last year. And where he's going in these ranks, it's absolutely zero risk to draft him. You get him basically your last position player before you get kicker and defense. And what's the risk? There is zero risk to drafting either of these guys, and I don't see why not. I mean, you could definitely use them right away, especially those first 3 weeks. They can be your flex. You can do well. So I have no problem. I really like those guys late.
Yeah, I like him too. I think Terrence West has much more upside because I think he could play the entire year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
once Jacquizz Rodgers will lose his position if Doug Martin comes back healthy. Off of suspension and stays healthy, I should say. But yeah, I completely agree with Craig. I think that's great, and especially Terrence West that late. You might as well take a risk on a number one running back.
Yeah, and if he doesn't work out at all, just release him and find the next guy.
Or as you said, take a no risk on a number one running back.
Chris P. has another question for us. Martavis Bryant, is he going to be the man this year with his return? Potential sleeper? For me, he's not even a sleeper anymore. What's going to happen with Bryant, I feel like, is he's going to go way higher than somebody that hasn't played in a year should go. But I can see why. He has all the talent in the world. I just don't want to... players like Bryant, I don't usually pick up. I usually try to be much more conservative with who I go after. So it really depends on how far he drops. I'm not reaching for him. I liked in our draft, our mock we did, he was our 4th receiver.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It depends on where you're at. Some people will fall in love with him. Yeah. I'm a big supporter of him. I think if you have him on your team, he is going to be dynamic. He will win you some weeks. I think he's that type of player. I think he's the type of guy that he might have a few down weeks where he has 40 yards and that's it. He's going to have a couple of weeks where he has 2 to 3 touchdowns. Yep. There's no doubt about it, and you're not going to draft him as probably a 1 or a 2.
I would hope not. If you're getting, I'd be really worried if he's your 2, but if you as a 3, I'm okay with it. And there's going to be leagues obviously where you can get him as a 4, yeah. and then that's perfect.
And depending on who I already have, I might take a risk and take him as high as a back end wide receiver 2,
yep.
Because if he works out, I'm golden, and if he doesn't, I can find someone new to take his place because it's wide receiver.
And right now, consensus-wise, he's 35th. So 10-team leagues, that's a 4th receiver. 12-team leagues, that's very back-end wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I'm taking that.
Okay
I'm
with
taking
that
all day. Yes,
I
absolutely.
definitely like that.
Absolutely pick him up. I love that guy's upside.
All right. I don't like usernames. Asked us, will Todd Gurley turn it around? We talked about it just a minute ago a little bit. He's my number 1, I guess, bust potential top 20, but I really don't see that happening. And I see an increase. I think he won't turn it around, I believe, to what we saw his rookie year, but he's going to, I think, be a little bit better. He's still going to be solid enough. He's getting drafted now finally at a spot where if he's not, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Zeke Elliott, that's fine. You don't need him to be. He's the 10th running back right now, kind of off the board, so he still could be your running back 1, but there's going to be a lot of people that get him as your 2nd, and that's a great 2nd. He's going to be a consistent player, I believe. At least he's going to get you 8 points a game. I think that. But I see a slight increase. I think his yards per carry will go up a little bit. He'll get a couple more touchdowns. Maybe not, top end right away, but I don't see him. I don't see a downfall. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about where he's being drafted right now. I don't think he's going to be a bust last year because he's not being drafted as a top 5 guy, just like you said. The thing It does worry me. I don't, like you said, I don't think we're going to see him return to form of his rookie year because the team around him is still a big, giant pile of crap. But,
pretty much.
I mean, the thing about last year is he didn't have one game with 100-plus yards rushing.
Yep.
I mean, he just had no big runs. He was trying to grind it out the entire time. That offensive line was in shambles. The passing offense couldn't do anything. It will be a little bit better this year. He still had 6 touchdowns, almost 900 yards rushing, and that was on a crappy year. So even if he bounces back a little bit, you can look at 1,000 yards with 8 touchdowns and then another 300 in receiving. So that's perfectly in line with a running back too. And you do have the upside of maybe that team is a little bit better than even I believe, and then he returns to that rookie year, and you get 3 games on top of all the yards he put up that year.
Yeah, and new coaching staff, new everything. You don't really know what's going to be, but I think he's going to turn it around.
Yeah, I think he's finally safe for where you're drafting him. So,
all right, we got a couple questions here. We'll kind of combine here. They're kind of similar. Zpod4 asks us, would you consider going a 3 running back approach? And then Fantasy Zombie 17 asks, how seriously should I consider a 0 wide receiver approach, given the depth at the position? And so basically, 3 running backs, kind of going with the running back at the flex spot, and 0 wide receiver, you basically draft 3 running backs to start off the draft. And I'm completely okay with both. I think I'm going running back 3. Because we've talked about this. Wide receiver is so deep. Martavis Bryant, we just got 35th ranked receiver. There's a lot of potential down there. And it worked out when we held off on wide receiver in our mock, and it worked pretty well. So I would like to draft 3 running backs first 3 rounds. I think if you can get 3 starting running backs, you're going to put yourself in a much better situation than anybody else. You're not going to have to fight those committees if you can do that. So that's where I'm definitely considering just waiting on receiver, unless you get one of the very top 4. But after that, they're all the same to me.
Yeah, like we've talked about it a lot, but absolutely, I completely agree with you. And I've always been a huge advocate to be running back. Solidify that, if not running back heavy. And you're right, in the past couple of years, it was beneficial to go, wide receiver heavy and just kind of load up there and then find out who you can get. But as there's such a tier system now in the running backs, if you don't have one of those top guys, you're going to be outmatched in that position, and that's where the danger comes in. So absolutely, I think at least you would go 2 top running backs, and then you start getting wide receiver, and then you can fill in with a couple different running backs that you're not positive of that you can kind of bet on. I mean, so if you get 2 more guys, or 3 probably, you just need 1 to work out, and then you'll be fine.
But especially in a snake draft, don't go into the draft with that okay, I have to get running back. If somebody falls to you that shouldn't be there, that is much more talented, pick them up at wide receiver. If one of those top receivers somehow falls to you in the second, and you're thinking, I should get a running back here, that's what I want. No, I think you get the most talented player at that spot. So don't pass up a guy who you clearly think's better just to keep with a strategy. I think your strategy should always be the best player you could possibly get. That's what I'm looking at. He's in the second round. If
we say that, but at the same time, that's not what we did.
No, it depends. I think we did in a way.
Well, we got McCoy. Remember,
because I think McCoy was better than those wide receivers. I still think you need a top running back. I'm saying first round, yes. Second round,
I got you.
I'm saying the second round, I don't think there's a running back good enough in the second round to make you pass up Des Bryant.
Okay, one of the top 7 wide receivers.
Yeah, something like that. Let's say Des drops in the middle of the second round. You're sitting there. Are you going to draft? Let's see, Des over. Let's see here. Des over Fournette. You still going to go Fournette? Or you're going to go Des? Stick to your running back strategy and get Fournette? This could be back into the second.
This is kind of a 50-50 with me. Right now I'd probably go Fournette, though. Not even going to lie.
I'm going to go Des here. Yeah. I'm not sold yet on
I probably
Fournette.
would do that because it is so deep. So, yeah, I would go that running back situation.
Yeah,
but then again, if it wasn't Fournette, if you go 1 more down, if it was Lamar Miller, then I would take Des all day.
Yeah, let's say the running backs really went heavy there, and Jordy Nelson's there, or you could get Jordy Nelson, or you can get Gurley. I'm going Jordy Nelson yet. I think I think Jordy's more of a sure thing than Gurley, so I'm gonna go Jordy there. Like, there's such situations. I think I'm going receiver. It just really depends on which the player is and how.
So, that running back lock in first round and then second round.
First round
situational.
for sure. I believe. Yeah, I really think.
And then that'll dictate 3 and 4.
Yeah, and again, but that also still you say that, but running back wise, if Johnson, Bell, Elliott, McCoy are there for sure. Gordon most likely, but I'm not picking Gordon over Antonio Brown. I don't believe. That's the thing.
That's a tough one.
You're
Antonio Brown, yeah.
Right? Like, that's where I'm looking. You can't be like 100% dead set on it. Yeah, if McCoy or Gordon's the top running back on the board, and Antonio, like, let's say, the first 4, they went the top 3 running backs, and then McCoy went 4. Yeah, I mean, what do you do there? And then, let's say, then somebody picks Antonio Brown, but then let's say Gordon goes, then Howard goes. You're sitting there, there's Beckham and Evans. Are you going to pick Beckham and Evans, or are you going to go DeMarco Murray, Devontae Freeman?
In that situation, I would go, obviously, Beckham.
Where you can't be like 100% dead set on it.
Yeah, I think I still might go Gordon over Antonio Brown in that situation. Yeah. I might kick myself later.
I think I'm going
because
Brown.
I'd be so scared of not getting one of those
exactly.
guys.
That is where the issue comes in.
I mean, if you don't get one of those, then all of a sudden in the second round,
you have to get
and you're handcuffed.
That is where the issue comes in.
You would have to pass up on other guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. At least if you're further down, if you're like the 8th pick and you're sitting there deciding on Evans or I don't know, Jay Ajayi,
right?
DeMarco Murray, you might go Evans, and then he goes on the back. You can come back.
You'll get one of those. Yeah,
it's really. You kind of got to read your league too, and you have an idea of who these players. Who do you think that guy's going to get?
But it's a very interesting question because obviously we always like auction more.
Yeah.
So
auction, I'm targeting running back. I
was going to say, if it's not Snake,
I'm targeting.
You only have so much money.
Yep.
How much money would you be willing to spend on your top 2 running backs?
I mean, I'm going. This is an interesting question. I'm going over 100 combined on 2 running backs for sure.
How much would you pay to get one of those top 3 running backs out of a $200 auction budget?
Honestly, if I can get one of those 3 and lock them down, I'm paying at least $70. I never would have said that like 2 years ago, but the more and more I see it and how much they can change your team and just you have a set 15 to 20 points, I think you need that guy. There's enough other guys you can find on your team and you can make enough waiver wire moves. I would go that high. I know sometimes it seems crazy, but honestly, I thought people were just idiots a couple years ago. I remember in a draft I saw Peterson went for like 70. I just thought, okay, why would you do that? I can see it now, and I think there's enough value around because you can go $1 quarterback, $1 tight end, get one decent receiver, and then there's some value down there. So
yeah. I mean,
I'm spending a lot.
So it makes sense. So if on one running back you would spend a third of your budget,
I would.
It does show how important that is.
And I'd spend like 40 on the second running back, and I really would. And if it's a good enough player,
which is crazy. You would spend over your budget, over half your budget.
I would.
I
honestly
2 running backs.
I feel confident,
and I completely agree with you.
I feel confident enough in the wide receivers down further that their value will be low enough, and there's going to be enough players there that will be good. And I just feel like you need those top running. If you can secure 2 top 5 running backs, I think you're set. 2 top 10 running backs. Still, that's really good.
Yeah, I don't think you can afford 2 top 5 running backs.
It's possible.
I guess so. I mean, maybe when I say
it depends on on the league and the keeper situation, all that stuff. Yeah, you could do it.
I couldn't imagine the chunk of budget that would be gone though.
I almost think it could be worth it. It's crazy, but maybe it is. All right, we got a couple more questions here. Chris P asks, which defenses should we look for? Streaming defenses this season the route to go? Honestly, at this point, I don't have a defense I'm targeting because I feel like it's happened in the past where you think, okay, Seattle's going to be for sure the top thing, and they're fine, but they're not. Somebody else steps up every time. I think after like a week or two, you'll know there'll be some team that steps up and their defense looks amazing. They're doing everything. You can pick them up at that point. I'm not going to target a defense. If maybe in an auction, throw one of the top defenses you like for $1. If someone outbids you, sure, take them. But in a snake draft, I'm just going to wait until probably the 14th round or 5th, whatever the end of the round is.
I might go 1 round early
and just. There's just nobody, honestly, I'm targeting enough. I'd like to. It changes so much year to year. You don't really know who's going to be
with
the
defenses. Top. You stream all day. I mean, it's very true. Every year there's different ones, and you could. I mean, if you go ahead, you could get someone that you know is going to be at least decent for the first 3 weeks, right?
Well, in stream, I do stream often, but if you can find somebody then in the first couple weeks that is just working out, then don't worry about streaming. Just stick with one, but. I usually stream defenses. It seems to work out all right. You can find enough good matchups. Once the season gets a few weeks in, you know which teams are terrible.
Yeah, and generally, most defenses, and there's usually 1 or 2 that are probably safe to play all the time. But even with those guys, there's always teams that they're going to come up against that you're not going to want to play them. That there's a better play off the waiver wire. So to pay more than you have to for a defense is usually foolish.
Yep. All right, one final question from Raider Ace. He asks, how do you get coworkers to join your fantasy league? Jeff, do you have any tips?
No.
I really know. It's a tough thing, isn't it?
I wish I had something fun to tell you, but no, I mean, if you know that they're into fantasy football, that's an easy conversation to have. You can make it, I'll just try to make it as fun as possible. Maybe have said that there's going to be a work league trophy or something like that. But
it is difficult sometimes to find enough people for a league. I mean, we've had those issues trying to find enough people, but I don't know. You just find somebody that likes football and get them into it somehow.
Yeah, exactly. You need try to get a small amount of people. If you can get 1 or 2 more guys to with you and then start talking about it, usually people will want to do it with you.
If you can find 8 people, even 8 teams aren't ideal, but if you can get a little league like that going.
Yeah, and then you can fill in with the rookie guys and break them into fantasy football.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that's it for the Mailbag Show. We'll be back next week with some more shows. We'll talk about our undervalued players, go over all that. In the meantime, make sure to check us out on Twitter at the FF Prophet, Fantasy Football Prophet on Instagram. And get those reviews in for our review contest. Check out the show notes for more information about that. And we'll talk to you guys next time.